It is now 6:01 p.m. and I will call this meeting to order. As a reminder, if you'd like to speak before the commission tonight, please complete a blue speaker request and give it to the clerk prior to the item. Clerk, can we please call the roll?
Commissioner Tinko will be marked absent. Commissioner Perla?
Present.
Commissioner Gracia?
Present.
Commissioner Ward?
Here.
Chair DaCosta will be marked absent.
Tonight, the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Commissioner Ward. You can please stand.
Place your hands over your right heart.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Joe's got two hearts. His left and his right.
All right. Our first presentation item this evening will be the introduction of our new Public Safety Commissioner, Rob Gracia. Mr. Jones.
Yes, Commissioner Gracia has lived in the city of Eastville for 9.5 years. Prior to his career in law enforcement, he served in the United States Army National Guard as an infantryman, at which point he was an honorable discharge in 2005 at the rank of sergeant. After his 8 years of service in the U.S. Army, he was hired by the Southgate Police Department after completing the Rio Hondo Police Academy. During his tenure at Southgate PD, he worked various assignments such as field training officer, prostitution and gang suppression. Commissioner Gracia joined the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department in 2008, where he began in the county jail system and eventually tested to be tactical flight deputy. Commissioner is now a pilot with the department, where he now conducts rescues in the mountains, insert SWAT teams for various operations to include barricades, maritime board inserts, active shooter, and much more. He has been a Southern California native his entire life and is married to his wife Victoria for the last 10 years, and they have a 9-year-old son, Joshua. He looks forward to working with the Public Safety Commission and hopes to provide positive input on the city. Welcome to the commission.
All right, welcome, Commissioner. Next up, item 3.2, Code Enforcement Update and Introduction of our new Office Specialist, Samantha McKenzie. Officer Moreno.
Good evening, Commissioners and members of the public. For the benefit of Commissioner Rob Garcia and the public, Code Enforcement provides regular updates to the public on code enforcement cases, street sweeping citations, and staff updates. This code enforcement update reflects the period for September 26, 2018 through October 23, 2018. It includes code enforcement activities such as street sweeping enforcement, code enforcement cases, signs, and staff updates. For this reporting period, we have removed a total of 405 illegally posted signs throughout the city. For this reporting period, our street sweeping enforcement officers have issued a total of 1,263 street sweeping citations. Code enforcement has responded to over 118 cases within the last 28 days. At this time, our quickest turnaround for closed cases continues to be junk and rubbish in public view. And the slowest turnaround for closed cases continues to be overgrown vegetation, weeds, and inoperable vehicles stored in public view. Our most common case type of violations consist of recreational vehicles that are parked on private and public property. Staff updates. Our current staff levels are as follows. We currently have three full-time code enforcement officers, one part-time code enforcement technician dedicated to work on Sundays only, 2 part-time street sweeping enforcement officers, and 1 new code enforcement office specialist. This will bring our staffing levels to a total of 7 staff members in our department, which includes full-time and part-time staff. We currently have code enforcement working 7 days a week. This concludes my report. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions.
And at this time, I'd like to introduce Samantha McKenzie, who has over 10 years experience in customer service. She comes from the city of Chino Hills, where she worked in the community services for 4 years. She began working for the city of Chino Hills as a recreation specialist responsible for active adult programming. So she'll be great working with us. She also assisted with community events preparation of city recreation brochure and contract classes in 2016. she was promoted to the position of office assistant at the McCoy Equestrian Center, where she oversaw facilities reservations and administrative functions. In her free time, she has volunteered with senior living and dementia care facilities, as well as the Special Olympics, and is grateful for the experiences that these have offered her. She enjoys spending time with her family, being creative, and challenging herself in new ways, and we're going to challenge her here. Samantha is looking forward to serving many years with the City of Eastville, and she is happy to be part of the team, and we're happy for her to be part of our team. So with that, Samantha.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to working with everybody. Anybody have any questions?
So our goal with Samantha is to help our officers and our code enforcement technicians and our street sweepers stay out in the field as much as possible, so that she can help with many of the administrative duties that bring them back into the office, because they're much more of an asset to us and a higher use of their skills and talents being out in the field, working with the community and helping first try to get compliance before we have to use code enforcement. So we're really excited for her to help us keep our code enforcement as productive and effective as possible in getting going out into the community and working with our community and serving our community. So we're going to put a number of new practices in place, and we've told her that she has full authority to manage up. So her success or their success is her success. So and we're excited to have her on board. So
Thank you.
Okay, 3.3 is our fire department update, and I don't see anyone from the fire department. So we'll move on to 3.4, our police department update.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'll go over the October numbers. For the month of October, the number of calls of service, we had 2,270, which is down 6% from the month of August. For the total traffic collisions in the month of October, we had 83, which was down 10% from or actually was a 10% increase from the previous month. That had 75. For the injury traffic collisions, we had 25, which was an increase of 17 more than we had the previous month. For non-injury traffic collisions, we had 58, which is a 13% decrease from the previous month. Total number of citations written, we had 494, which was a 10% decrease from 551 the previous month. Moving citations, we had 309 were written in the month of October, which was an 8% decrease from the previous month, which was 339. Parking violations, 185 parking violations were written, which was a 12% decrease from the previous month, which was 212. Vehicle burglaries, we had a total of 18, which was a 10% decrease from 20 the previous month. Noise calls, we had 71 total, which was a 2% increase from the previous month, which was 69. Mail thefts, we had 6 total, which was the same as the previous month. The UCR stats, I have the August numbers. We had 0 homicides, 0 reported rapes. We had 2 robberies, 4 aggravated assaults, 8 burglaries, 59 larceny or thefts. We had 15 vehicle thefts and 0 arsons. The 2 burglaries, I researched those. Correction. The 2 robberies, I researched those. One was a shoplifting that turned into a robbery when the loss prevention tried to detain him. And the other one was a strong arm robbery without a weapon used. And I'm here for if you have any questions. All right, thank you.
Item 3.5, our homeless outreach team.
Commissioners, good evening.
Good evening.
Deputy Mike Vasquez, and this is my partner Alicia Espinoza Martinez. We appreciate your time tonight. We won't be too long. We'll be brief and it'll be available for questions at the end. But we'll just go through this quickly, and we know some of your experience. So make notation if we use acronyms or anything like that if you're not understanding. So we're the homeless outreach team, and our goal is working without handcuffs in the capacity with our homeless people in our communities, and especially here in the city of Eastvale. Last year reported with our PIT count, and actually it was 2018 of this year, which was our point in time count. We go out once a year and take a snapshot of all the individuals within our communities and that are classified as homeless, and we use this definition. All the cities came to a total of 2,300. I know Eastvale had, I think, 0 in their PIT count last year. So we use this definition defined by HUD as our baseline of how we track these individuals. So people that are living in a place not meant for habitation, emergency shelter, transitional housing, or an existing institution where they temporarily reside. Pardon my tongue tied. So the pros and cons of the PIT count for us specifically in the community is it offers a snapshot of the incorporated and unincorporated areas. But if you look at where it's based out of on the East Coast, the actual count is geared for cold weather shelters. And so back east, when we look at kind of how they do the process in those specific cold weather areas, people go into the shelters because they're going to freeze to death if they're not there. So it gives more of an accurate count. And Southern California doesn't allow us to do that in terms of finding those people that are actually in temporary shelters. So that's kind of something we want you guys to think about as we give you this presentation, as we specifically talk about Eastvale, because it's something we have to consider. What do we do as a hot team specifically? Our name is Homeless Outreach, and that's exactly what we do. We go out into communities. We work with the liaisons that are established in each community. You guys have a set team, a special enforcement team that does you guys' connection within your communities. Will contact us and say, hey, we have a problem individual. We have a person that we want to outreach to, and we connect them to those individuals or those organizations that will allow for that process to kind of take place, right? Rehabilitation, housing, things like that, workplace, life skills. So that's kind of where we're at in terms of what we do. We contact them, take all their information, pertinent information, and enter them in the system if necessary. There's 2 avenues when we talk about the system. One being diversion, right? They can immediately go into a program, they can immediately go into some kind of work placement, and then there's housing. So the housing process is quite lengthy. Affordable housing is something that we could talk about all night long, which we won't go down that road, but something that we take into consideration when working with our organizations that actually do the housing. We work through the COC, which is the Continuum of Care, which is the Riverside County umbrella. And underneath that umbrella are many organizations which offer those services. So we track them and we kind of do case management once we get them into the system. So as we move along, some of our collaborative partners that we want you guys to kind of know about, specifically that work in your community, is behavioral health, right? We have immediate access to clinicians that might come out to us. They're a phone call away for us. We find individuals that might need assistance on the behavioral health side. The outreach team can employ their assistance. Social services is another one, the Housing Authority, and then our nonprofit partners, right? Path of Life Ministries, which is right here in downtown Riverside, and the Coachella Valley Rescue Mission, which we also partner with, which takes many transplants from the West End all the way to the Coachella Valley because they have available bed space. And then our U.S. Vets and Health to Hope, which is our mobile units for that offer medical services. Some of the things I mentioned that we offer, and we'll go through this quickly, is rental assistance 1 to 12 months, which is our rapid rehousing or permanent housing, which is a program through the county for permanent supportive housing. The funds come from federal funds, grant funding, different funding sources, and private organization funds. Physical and mental health services, substance abuse rehab programs, and then job placement and life skills. I just talked about where the money comes from. So if you haven't heard, with a lot of cities, they're declaring an state of emergency with homelessness, ones that are overrun and need services like funding from the feds. They're using their point in time count numbers to kind of employ those funds, right? A lot of times cities use grant funding, block grant funding to do that for outreach. They'll employ some of our nonprofit partners as their outreach or use the sheriff's department as their outreach. So faith-based organizations. And then within the sheriff's department, we have our Site B, which is people who are in custody, learn job skills, and now probation is even probating people to like teen challenge and rehabilitation centers before they even hit the streets. People who are deemed home or have the propensity to be homeless or potential to be homeless when they get out. I'll let my partner kind of take over here, and then we'll come back and kind of wrap it up in a minute.
Okay, so we have 10 patrol stations within our county, and each station has their own liaisons, has anywhere from 1 to 3 liaisons who are responsible for the immediate response of homelessness within their contract cities and unincorporated areas. And the whole point is so that they can identify where the problem areas are. As my partner said, we're countywide, so we may not be as familiar with contract cities as the deputies that serve those communities. So we work hand in hand with the deputies that are the liaisons for that station to essentially resolve that problem. For sure. Here we go. Correctional facilities, like my partner said, the homeless that are homeless before they're incarcerated or before they're sent to jail, they oftentimes get lost in transit upon being released. So the jail's working to identify those that are homeless. Is this on?
It's on.
That they work to identify those that are homeless who are taken into custody and identify what problem areas. So whether they may have behavioral health issues, substance abuse issues, they're just chronically homeless, and they identify those individuals prior to releasing them back onto the streets. So how does this help your community? Quality of life, right? Living within Riverside, all the community members, most of us live here. We want to improve our quality of life. We don't want to see transients loitering around business areas, residential areas, community parks, etc. So our job is to simply try to alleviate that as much as possible, and essentially provide a safe feeling for business owners and citizens, safer parks where we take our kids, family environment, which also leads to less drug activity and less drug use. And a big one is it also helps alleviate patrol deputies to responding to these calls so that they can focus and utilize their time towards, I don't want to say that homelessness is not important, but more important, higher priority calls. Community education, basically we ask that community members don't necessarily give directly to panhandlers, to the homeless. We've all seen it. We've all seen it in a center median or an off-ramp or on-ramp on a freeway, and we see transients panhandling. We ask that they are not given money directly just because it contributes to enabling them. Instead, we ask that those people who do want to help out reach out to their local organizations and see what they can do to partner with them to help. Consider making donations, consider offering up their time to assist, rather than giving them money directly.
And we know you guys have the signs that are being...
Yes, I think those are the signs you sent us, right? Yeah.
We currently have 10 up and we're putting 20 more up. So all the entrances to the city have a sign that says it's okay to say no to panhandling with the Eastville Police Department logo and the city seal on it and the Eastville Municipal Code on aggressive panhandling, as well as we're going to be putting in 20 more around all of our retail centers. So just to remind people that you don't have to feel guilty for not giving them money. There's enough resources out there for them.
It's all right. Okay, so what are some of the challenges that the homeless face? For those who have been chronically homeless, which many of them have been homeless for a number of years, obviously the longer that they have been homeless, it becomes harder for them to get back on their feet, whether it's maintaining sobriety, whether it's landing a job, transportation to and from a job, hygiene for that job. So you can kind of see how it all kind of ties in together. And the longer they've been homeless and out of work, the harder it becomes. And then obviously fear of failing and becoming homeless again once they are on their feet. So these are just some of the issues that they face. Benefits for the homeless. Obviously, trying to get them back on their feet, regain their independence, becoming self-sufficient, and just overall better quality of life for them as well as for us. And then these are just some pictures of some encampments here within Riverside County. Just kind of give you an idea. None of these are in Eastville. Oops, I went too far. There we go.
So we just want to highlight some of the challenges that we might be facing as a community here in Eastville. And one of them is most recently the Ninth Circuit Court decision that came out of Idaho, out of Boise, right? And so the facts of what we know is a number of individuals were cited due to a camping and sleeping ordinance that was enacted by the city. And they were arrested during a period of time, and years later they filed suit, right? So the city initially won the process, and they were awarded the convictions. It went to appeals, and recently the appeal was upheld, so the convictions were overturned. And what that basically said is something we want to consider is here's the exact ordinance as it's written, and this is kind of where we're at with our hands being tied right now. So the appeal said that people can sleep on a public sidewalk, road, private or public land, unless there's another additional criminal activity like accompanying the encampment. So we're working to divert people at this point. We're working to get them housing and get them off the streets rather than to play the game with the law specifically. If there is a law that accompanies the encampment, obviously we're gonna enforce that, and that's kind of our motto. But our direction at this point is we're working through the established protocols to get them into diversion and into the housing process. So I know that that's kind of become an issue and something we're looking at. We're working through with vets as well, but here's kind of a recent Eastville concern that we want to share with you guys. And this is kind of what we looked at recently. Is Manuel Watts Kittleson. He was located deceased, 12500 block of Limonite. He was ID'd. But here's kind of his story. He was a possible transient. We still haven't even nailed down his residence or where he was staying. We know that it wasn't specifically in the city of Eastville, like a long-term transient. But what we can tell you is he has no local contacts with law enforcement within the Riverside County at all. He has no hits, not in any city in Riverside County. February of 2018, he had a warrant. In August, more recently, 2018, he had a 5150 contact in Ontario. So they're adjacent communities, but he actually had a physical address out of El Monte. It was his last known residence, and that was like 2017 or 2018. So he was located with no signs of trauma and pending toxicology at this point, and it's public record now. So we just want to share that with you guys as kind of how we're looking at this process and going. People are coming in and out of your cities, and we haven't had the opportunity we haven't come across any encampments specifically. We know there are transitory people in nature that are coming through the city, and we'd like to work with our community partners to identify who those people are, where they're at, where they might be staying for the day, you know what I mean, and working at those things through our liaisons and through community partners. We know the fire department has some information that they might be able to provide on where they've seen people coming and going, and so that's kind of the approach we're looking at as we move forward at this point.
Oh, that's what I was talking about.
So we're available for any questions.
That was an outstanding presentation. Thank you. I've had the occasion to come across two transitory people, Daniel and Linda, and they are mostly in front of the Ralph's supermarket. And I talked to Linda, and I'm not sure, that's why I want to get some clarification from you. She said she was in a program that was helping her, and that may very well be the program that you mentioned earlier. And I haven't seen her or him in the past month, so I was just wondering if that program, if you were able to help them, and maybe that's why I haven't seen them in the past month.
Yeah, I'll talk with. So those first names are not specific. They don't really ring a bell because we've got like.
No, I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't. It's a male and female Hispanic, and they always do the recycling just to the rear. Yeah, just to the rear of the Ralph there.
Yeah, I mean, what we can do, and again, we're working through the liaisons for your city. I mean, you'd be surprised they know everybody's name. So, If they're regulars, we can definitely give you guys an update through the lieutenant, or come back and share with you guys an update. But it is a process, so they may have been in process and actually come to a place of rapid rehousing or rehab. And I don't know for your community, those two specifically, but we'll work on it and get you the information on that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, just for clarification, I'm very familiar with those two. I'm not sure where they're at because they're usually pushing a shopping cart around Eastville Gateway Center, both south and both sides, and also behind the routes. So, but you're right, I haven't seen them for the last month. So hopefully they're okay and they're getting their what they need.
Thank you.
I just have one question, and maybe you can answer it, if not the lieutenant. Our riverbed, and I've had several citizens ask about the riverbed. I remember several years ago, and Lieutenant Martin, I believe you were here, I believe it was when you just started, there was a cleanup I think it was when we were trying to get the homeless count. Do we routinely check the riverbed as part of that? And that's a two-part question. Another part is I know on the city of Corona, just driving by that all the time on my way home by the airport on Corridon. They did a recent, I think they did, it looked like, where they cleaned up the riverbed and were trying to help these people. And there was quite a number of people, and that arose with the question of the fires that were recently down there. And I don't know the cause of those fires, but on social media, as we're all aware of, it goes crazy when there's anything going on in the city of Eastvale. Was there any concern or coordination between our city and our neighbors when one city goes down to the riverbed and those residents either moving north or south?
So to answer the first part of your question, the river bottom, yes, it is monitored. We go down there regularly, as well as your city set team. They're aware. So yes, it is monitored. We do go down there, physically go down there and check. Sometimes we find people, sometimes we don't. And when we do find them, we address the issue. Second part of your question, as far as collaborating with sister cities, we have a CES meeting that we go to every Tuesday morning for about an hour and a half to 2 hours. And what we do is we work, everyone who works towards essentially or ideally ending homeless in Riverside County, we all come together. So you're talking about the VA, you're talking about housing, you're talking about all the faith-based community organizations. You're talking everybody who has a hand in this homeless issue comes together and meets once a week. And when we do that, we all discuss areas that we've hit, and people that we've contacted, transients we've enrolled into whatever they need, whether it's housing, behavioral health, substance abuse, etc. So then that goes for all the communities within Riverside County. So everything is discussed, even though Eastvale doesn't have any homeless according to the PIT count right now. Well, permanently. We all come together and we all discuss that every single week. So yes, the area is closely monitored.
And if I can add something, I believe you guys 2 weeks ago helped Riverside PD,
Yes.
right? If you can
Yep.
give them a little brief on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 2 weeks ago, we did a collaborative cleanup as a prevention as well to identify individuals in the river bottom, find out what direction they were going to be moved and or thought about moving, and then offered services. So the outreach was done actually for almost a month beforehand, before we even did the cleanup, that we had been going out to kind of outreach to them. And yeah, it was like eight sites just within the river bottom alone. So any cities that butt up, like Norco, we just did an operation down there where we went and contacted several individuals. Diversion was offered. Excuse me. Rehabilitation. One person did get arrested for a warrant and all those kinds of things. So we are working in tandem with that. And because Alicia and I are kind of the umbrella, everybody kind of reports those things to us so we can start to manage, like, hey, have you talked to this city? No, we haven't. Well, we sit down with them every Tuesday morning. If there's a representative that goes out, usually it's code enforcement that's doing the handiwork for the cities for those areas like the river bottom. So, yep.
Are you guys finding any like narco down there when you guys are dealing with these guys, or
No,
firearms, anything like that?
no. We haven't had any in this region at all. It's been mostly the East End where we're finding some of the abnormal things, items that aren't really particular to our homeless, so we have not.
All right. The only question I had was in regards to the homeless issue. Are we talking to public transportation at all? Obviously, they're getting in and out probably via public transportation. They're gonna know, the drivers are probably gonna know the regulars that are coming in and out. Are they paying their fare? Is that something that you guys
Yeah,
do as well?
we just did a collaborative. We sat down I think it was 3 weeks ago with RTA and some of the local transit lines to actually do that, because they're the ones that are actually coming in contact with people at their bus stops. They're actually sleeping there, and they want to know who to call because they're like, we're more regularly in contact than you guys. I mean, you drive by and yeah, they're here at the bus stop. You don't know if they're coming or going. So we just did a collaborative effort just a couple weeks ago. I sat down to kind of prepare a plan and put a plan in place to see how we can aid them as the umbrella to kind of work towards that, to say, hey, we know this person's getting off in your city. They don't come back for 3 days or 4 days, and then they're back at the bus stop. What do you think? I'm pretty sure they're homeless by how they look, smell, and those kinds of things. So these are the signs and indicators. Here's their name. This is where they're at normally at this date and time. So we're going to be doing training with the drivers as well. So.
Oh, perfect. And then the other question I had was, you may have already answered it, but for your guys' mental evaluation teams, do you guys have those when coming in contact with people that are that have a disability, to kind of alleviate the patrol deputies from having to deal with those, you know, because obviously when you do a 5150 hold, you're going to be tied up for a while, right, as a patrol deputy. Do you guys have teams in place, like a nurse that kind of rides around the deputy to come take the handle and take that burden off the patrol deputy so they can obviously handle other calls?
Yes, so we have what's called CREST. CREST is, I want to say on call, but their hours, they don't work like middle of the night. But CREST, what they do is they are an on call basis. They serve Riverside County. And that's exactly that's their whole purpose. They come out, so if I'm on patrol and I go to a 5150, I've established, hey, they need to be on a 72-hour hold. Now I'm tied up and I have to wait. What they do is they have two parts. One, they go out and have the abilities to give an evaluation on spot and determine, does this person need to be on a hold? Are they not quite there but still unstable? Do they need meds? Do they need to be set up with a doctor, etc.? And the second part is that oftentimes, obviously, you know, having been law enforcement in the past, oftentimes those that are placed on a hold or mentally unstable are a little bit more receptive to them. So that may, you know, be a little bit more addressed from them versus addressed from us. So yes, CREST, and then also behavioral health for those that we contact out in the field. We can, like you said, we can call behavioral health staff and say, hey, we have this person, and you know, they may need some assistance. So yeah, on site.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they're 24 hours countywide?
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay. Thank you.
I just wanted to say, I want to thank you for coming out and making a presentation. They're going to also be making one before City Council as well. You know, there's a large concern for the homeless influx that could potentially, or the anxiety or the worry of coming into Eastville and impacting the quality of life of other residents. And we are keeping a very close eye on those and working closely with the Eastville Police Department and the HOT team to provide the resources and services to the homeless transients that move through, to keep them moving through and not call Eastville home at this time. So, you know, while there's a concern, we are doing everything we can to provide the resources and show them where the resources that are available to them to help them through their homeless challenges.
Thank you. I noticed the fire chief walked in. If we want to go back to item 3.3, if that would be appropriate for a fire department update.
Thank you. I'll give you a quick update on, from our last meeting on the 23rd. Calls for service, 250 calls citywide. Those broken down between medical aids, false alarms, public service assists, fires, ringing alarms. The majority of those calls being medical in nature, 72% for the city. Average response time for both engines within the city is from the time of dispatch to time of arrival, 4.8 minutes. For Station 27, which is the station on Hamner, excuse me, they continue to be our busiest station out of the two. Of those 250 calls for service for the month, they ran 200 of those calls. Their average response times are about 4.6 minutes. Of total calls, 72.5% of those are medical aid in nature. And for Station 31, they ran 89 calls in the same time period. 70.8% of those being medical in nature, with their average response time being 4.7 minutes. For the same time frame last year, for the city, they ran 229 calls versus 250 this year. So that is an increase in calls citywide. Those numbers continue to go up every year. Station 27 ran 160 calls in the same time frame in 2017 as opposed to 200 for this time, so that's quite an increase for Station 27. And Station 31, they actually ran 94 calls last year and they ran 89 calls this year, so they had a decrease in a couple of calls. Nothing out of the ordinary in this time frame as far as major incidents, traffic collisions, or fires. Pretty standard on all the calls that we're running. And I'm available to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you. All right, we'll move to the consent calendar. All matters on the consent calendar are considered routine and are to be approved with one motion unless the commissioner, staff member, or member of the public requests separate action on a specific item. Has any Eastvale staff member requested to pull an item?
No, sir.
Okay. I see no members of the public, so I'm assuming no members of the public have requested to pull an item. Any commissioners would like to pull an item for discussion? Okay, then a motion is in order to, for the consent calendar.
I second the motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar as submitted, seconded by Mr. Ward.
Commissioner Ward?
Aye.
Commissioner Gracia?
Aye.
Commissioner Pereira?
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0.
Moving on to business items. Item 5.1, update on the city's local hazard mitigation plan resolution.
Good evening, Commissioners. This item before you is the Local Hazard Mitigation Plan Annex. This is an annex of the County of Riverside's Hazard Mitigation Plan, and it is updated every 5 years. Work to update this annex was started in 2016, and much of the work wasn't done in 2017 with collaboration between the counties, the Riverside County Emergency Management Department, and various departments within the city. The plan was updated in 2017 and sent by the county to Cal OES and then FEMA, who approved the plan and asked for some minor revisions, which we had completed this summer. Since then, the plan has been conditionally approved and awaiting resolution from City Council. The local hazard mitigation plan identifies hazards in the city and develops mitigation strategies. The top hazards that were identified for the city of Eastvale were earthquakes, flood, fire, severe weather, drought, and transportation or hazmat hazards. This will go to City Council tomorrow, October 24th, for a resolution to accept the plan, after which the resolution will be attached to the plan and will go back to the county. I'm available for any questions.
questions? No.
Thank you.
Okay, a motion is in order to recommend to the city council to approve the updated City of Eastville Local Hazard Mitigation Plan and adopt the resolution as written. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to pass the plan, to approve the plan.
I'll second it.
Commissioner Ward,
Aye.
Commissioner Gracia,
Aye.
Commissioner Perla.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0.
Okay, public comment. I'm assuming there's no public comment.
No, sir.
All right, then we can move to city staff report. You never know. City staff report.
We have no reports.
All right, number 8, commission communications. Any commissioner have anything to report or inquire?
No.
I have one question. I think it probably goes to Public Works, if not city manager. And I noticed some outreach on social media regarding this. And I know for years I've been saying this city does an outstanding job. And we have a large group of citizens that have a lot of input, although not here. They have a lot of input on social media, and then misconceptions come about, and then it spreads like wildfire. And I know there's a long process into street repaving. Now, the hot topic is now the streets are done, striping. And timing of lights. Is there anything to report on when that could be coming up? So I even looked today and I got a phone call today that this is taking too long and this is not happening. And I know that's absolutely not true, but is there anything that we could say to the public on when we would expect street striping and light timing, especially in the southern part of the city to be done or started?
So I think that's a very valid question, and I wish we would have anticipated and communicated this a little faster, and it was a lesson learned by us to exceed the expectations of Eastville a little bit faster. There were some very important lessons that we learned in this contract, and we're going to be making a few changes in the next contract to help us out. However, when you have a street paving project, the contractor does it the most efficient way possible. And so they went in and ground out all the roadways, then they come in and pave all the roadways, and then they bring another contractor in to pave or to paint all the roadways, and then the traffic signals and the loops and the detection get reinstalled. And so when we grind out the roadways, all the loop detection got cut off. One thing that we are doing is that all 11 intersections that were ground through, we are putting back video detection rather than loop detection, so that in the future when we do street overlay projects, that we can keep the detection there and not cut the loops, and that will help at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock at night when you're the only car coming up to the intersection and you have to wait for the whole intersection to cycle around because it's on a fixed time, so to speak. So we're going to be working on that, and so instead of replacing them with loop detection, we're going to be replacing them with video detection. The video detection will also allow us in the future to connect our traffic signals to a traffic management center where we can see the operations of an intersection from our offices or from City Hall, and we can provide real-time information. So that will help us out as well in the future as we develop our traffic management center in the future. It's a vision, not a funded project quite yet, but I've implemented it in 2 other cities, and so I think we'll be able to do it here to help us at least with some of the major corridors. So yes, to make a long story short, yes, we are working to get, everything should be back and fully operational before Thanksgiving. And the stripers are already out there working. We might have seen, Hamner, recently completed, that was a separate project, but the street sweeping, we had to work with some striping crews, and we're enhancing the safety of the roadways by putting in buffered bike lanes where possible and changing the striping around a little bit, and enhancing the safety with the lane widths and whatnot to reduce some of the speeds on some of our roadways, especially around our schools, and enhance pedestrian connectivity. So some of the striping things is just taking a little bit longer just to work out some of those fine kinks. But we should have, you'll see some of the detection finished by the end of the month. So that's only a week away. And then you'll start seeing more and more over the next couple weeks. So it'll be rolling out really fast. But if you have to mobilize a construction crew multiple times, it costs the city. So, and what we need to do is weigh that. They are still on schedule to complete. They had 90 days to complete the construction, and they're still within the 90 days. And 90 days for a project of this size and magnitude is a pretty tight time frame for construction activity. So while I know we're doing a lot of construction in the city, we did send out a lot of communication last, I think it was Thursday, through our social media outlets. So if you can share those with your friends and families, the emails, I think it went out through e-notification as well. But if it didn't, we can make sure that it goes out through e-notification this week. But it went out through all of our social media platforms last week, just saying, hey, we monitor while we are not on all those Facebook pages all the time. We do monitor them from time to time, and then some of you will take screenshots and forward things to us. And this is just a normal process for the street repair process, and we are working to get it back into fully operation. And then we'll have some nicely paved, smooth roadways out there, and something that the community can be really proud of. So it's a little headache, especially when we have the Limonite interchange under construction, and Hamner was under construction in 2 different locations. And then we had Limonite over by Smart and Final under construction. And then we had a number of other projects. So it just seemed for a little while there that we had everything in Eastville under construction, and that was causing a lot of angst and anxiety for people that like to zip around our town. So we just ask for the patience during this time, and we understand that people are frustrated, and we're working to enhance that for the next contract. So,
Thank you, sir.
yeah.
Anything else from the?
I just had one question. I heard from one of the council members, I don't know if there's any updates on it. Are they installing LPRs in the city? Might be a question for the police department.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
the status on that. And are they going to be outfitting any of the radio cars with LPRs as well?
Yes. We will be outfitting six patrol cars, as well as a number of locations coming in and out the city. I think we're going to be installing, I think it's like 10 or 12 intersections or something like that. 28 cameras. So we'll have a number of lanes covered, entering and exiting the city of Eastville to capture a lot of data, and also communicate in real time and use technology to allow our officers to be even more efficient and effective with the criminal activity that may come from other communities, because we don't have any in our city.
Thank you.
But the time frame is it'll probably be in construction in Q1, Q2 next year. So we'll try to mobilize it as quickly as possible.
Thank you.
All right, future agenda items. Commissioners, for any future agenda items? No, I'm just happy that truck route thing got up. Because that was, what, two years ago when we first started that? And I apologize for not being here last month. All right. The next meeting of the Public Safety Commission is scheduled for Tuesday, November 27th at 6 p.m. Unless there's anything else, this meeting is now adjourned.